Good morning. Yes, it is morning here, and the sun is not up yet, but I am, and I'm having a day off, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm already having it. It's funny how that also relates to my embodied language. I know that I'm going to have it, and I am already having it. And that is really so wonderful that, embodied language is not about something that you are going to have in the future. If you believe embodied language to be something that you're going to have in the future, you're never going to have it. So here it is, every day. And the overt nature of language, and I should say specifically the overt nature of embodied language. It makes clear that what you believe when you engage in disembodied language, when you do not listen to yourself, in disembodied language, you're not in touch with yourself. You're speaking, but you're not listening. And so that is inadvertently resulting in this illusion of inner language. And so when you have embodied language, you realize that, and you really get that sense like, wow. So for instance, anybody who is still new with what is embodied language and what is disembodied language, I mean, I'd like to just briefly let you know that embodied language is, of course, when you listen to yourself. And disembodied language is when you do not listen to yourself. And so the illusion of inner language is created by disembodied language. And when you have embodied language, you immediately realize that when you talk, let's say, for instance, when you talk about your mind, when you talk about your thoughts, when you talk about what you usually refer to as stuff that goes on inside of you, you talk about your private speech, and now you supposedly make it overt. You make what was covert overt. You were quietly thinking it. You were quietly observing it. You were observing your thoughts. You were observing your mind. And then you are saying it. No, you're not saying it with disembodied language. You're saying it with embodied language. You're listening to yourself. You realize like, wow. All of a sudden you're liberated. All of a sudden you're relieved. All of a sudden it is clear that what you say to yourself when you listen to yourself is different from what you would say to yourself when you don't listen to yourself. All of a sudden you realize there's a difference between disembodied language and embodied language. And the overt nature of language, it really stands out once you begin to more clearly and more deliberately and more skillfully and more continuously listen to yourself while you speak. So when you speak about, let's say, your thoughts, you speak about whatever it is that you believe to be going on inside of you, you realize there's nothing going on inside of you. You realize there is no language inside of you. You realize that you're only saying something and you're only hearing something. and that language is indeed overt. Yeah. And so that is such a revelation. Yeah? It's a real revelation, because with the knowledge, with the expression, yeah, the knowledge is your expression, the knowledge is your language which you are expressing, your overt expression. So the knowledge is known, is expressed, is heard while you're talking. It is superb. And the overt nature of language is absolutely clear in embodied language. And in disembodied language, you're always confused, you're always distracted, you're always imprisoned. You believe yourself to be imprisoned. You're believed to be imprisoned by words. How the hell did that ever happen? How can you be imprisoned by words? You cannot be imprisoned by words. This is just your imagination taking you for a ride. Your fixation on the verbal playing tricks on you. Yeah? You are, when you say you're imprisoned by words, you're obviously referring to inner language. Yeah? But there is no inner language. So once again, the overt nature of language, once you get clear on that, all your problems are solved. It is so beautiful. You are wholesale abandoning all your problems, letting go of all your problems. And that is such a wonderful thing. And you are not just saying something and then you're done, in the sense that after you've said something, you've said it and then you're done saying it. No, you can continue to say it. You can say it in many different ways, in any way you want to say it. Yeah. Also very important that you address this issue from every possible angle. That you have your way of familiarizing yourself with this incredibly important fact. This incredibly important fact that all language is overt. And yeah, there are many implications. You cannot possibly address each of these implications in just a short conversation. There needs to be many conversations. And of course you should also recognize that the assumption of inner speech, the belief that you have a mind, how did that come about? It came about due to conditioning. And so many conversations preceded your belief in the illusion of your mind. So it is just unavoidable that many conversations are needed to also abdicate your mind, to neutralize your mind, to debunk your mind. It's really true. And it is such a delight to do that. Yeah? It is like every time you do that, it's another victory. It is another clarity. It is another discovery, another broadening of your understanding, another enhancement of who you are. And that is just so beautiful. And of course you can take a break. Of course you can pick it up where you left it again, or start at the other end, or you look at it from another angle. Anything you want to do, anything you want to say, you can say. Anything you want to address, you can address. And also, anything you don't want to address, perfectly okay to not address what you don't want to address. There's no urge or no force telling you that you have to speak about this or that. You just speak about whatever you want to speak about. That is your embodied language. And that is your self-expression. And yes, as I have said many times and will continue to say, this way of talking, this way of expressing yourself and being true to yourself, that is what real communication is about. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Have a good day. And so we are going to have this conversation together in which we can all be ourselves. And that is such a beautiful future that is ahead of us. The future looks good. Yeah. Because we haven't done this, and we're going to do this if in 2025 you are going to do what it takes to identify for yourself your own disembodied language and your embodied language. You need to sit by yourself, talk with yourself, and say to yourself, okay, I'm going to take some time here. I'm going to have some talk with myself and see if there's any truth to me listening to myself and expressing myself in what I have addressed as embodied language. And yes, I also then, of course, have to acknowledge that no, I was not listening to myself before. Yeah. When I start with that, even if I only begin to consider doing that, yeah, even if I begin to consider talking with myself, I already know beforehand that I wasn't listening to myself. And then I realize when I finally get to it, when I start talking out loud with myself and I finally actually put one foot in front of the other and begin to talk with myself and listen to myself, I realize like, oh my gosh, I have never ever been listening to myself. Yeah, that's the realization that will occur. You were never listening to yourself. You were not recognizing the difference between disembodied language and embodied language because you were not listening to yourself. You had to listen to yourself before you could recognize this difference. So now you're listening to yourself. That is big. That is huge. That is impactful. Yeah. There's no denying about it. There's no complaining about it. There's no, yeah. You can, there's nobody to manipulate here. You either do it or you don't. And when you do it, when you listen to yourself, you know that you do it. You sense that you do it. You feel that you do it. You hear that you do it. You know it because of what you say. And when you don't do it, strangely, you don't realize that you don't do it. You are kind of gone for a little while when you don't listen to yourself. You're kind of off track. You lose touch. You're not listening to yourself, but you don't realize that you don't listen to yourself. You only realize retrospectively, once you are again listening to yourself, that you were not listening to yourself. That's how that works. And you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to believe me. You can have your own conversation with yourself in which this will all be clear. And if it isn't clear, I'm telling you, you're not having this conversation. If it isn't clear whether you're listening to yourself or not, you're not listening to yourself. The lack of clarity, yeah, the confusion, and also all kind of dissatisfaction, all kind of worry, all kind of anxiety, and all kind of frustration. It all deals with disembodied language. When you have embodied language, when you listen to yourself, everything is positive. And it is not that, oh, now things are becoming positive. No. Things are positive. Instantaneously. And so, the switch from your disembodied language to embodied language, the switch from not listening to yourself to listening to yourself is instantaneous. And there is an immediate difference in everything. And yet, that difference is only going to be apparent to you to the extent that you have repeatedly described that to yourself, that you have repeatedly heard yourself say that you have repeatedly, overtly expressed how important this is, how beautiful this is, how much fun this is, how interesting this is. Yeah. Yeah. And whenever you have said what you wanted to say, whenever you have succeeded in having embodied language, you will experience this sense of happiness, this sense of accomplishment, this sense of certainty, this sense of understanding and truthfulness, which is just so exciting, so intriguing. You just can't get enough of it. So this is also why you keep going with it, because it is so fascinating that your discovery of it leads to this sense that there is more to be discovered, that there is more to be explored. And you go on because it is true. There's just no end to your joy and your excitement about this new perspective that opens to you. It keeps revealing you in different ways. Every time new, every time something that is enhancing you further and also making you more certain that this is your true nature, that is expressed by your own language. You use your language correctly. You use your language to describe your reality. Yeah. And not only describe your reality, create your reality. Everything you describe is in that moment created. Things become real because of you saying it, because of you expressing it, because of you recognizing it, because of you, you can say being conscious of it, but I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it's because of you adjusting your language to it. And anything that you want to get involved in will further enhance you. So anything you are naturally inclined to, I mean, I've been exploring with my embodied language. I've been exploring psychology. I've been exploring behaviorology. I've been exploring neuroscience. I've been exploring politics. In recent times, I've been realizing that it has also to do with politics. The sun is coming up. Of course, embodied language is the language of the future. It is the language of individual freedom, and that aligns with the politics of the right. Although, of course, it must be said that people on the right are just as much engaging in disembodied language as people on the left. But nevertheless, people on the right, because of their focus on individual freedom, they are more aligned with embodied language than people on the left. And so, to me, that is another interesting discovery, because until Trump came into being the president, I had never even paid any attention to politics. And so, and let me say something about politics here. Human beings have always existed in groups. That's just the history of mankind. And so this is why our disembodied language is, of course, the history of mankind. But you could say that due to the way societies have been created, especially in Western democratic countries, individuals have gotten rights. And these rights, they have been expressed by individuals. And yet, individuals in Western free societies have not acquired the language of individualism, which is of course embodied language. So, in spite of the fact that individuals have rights, we have continued to have disembodied language, which is just a hierarchical form of speech in which certain speakers are presumably more important than others because they're more powerful, they're smarter, they are more skillful, they are also more violent. In any case, that hierarchical speech has been going on forever, and this is how societies have been created in the past. But with humanism and with the way societies have developed in Western democratic countries, Christian, Judeo-Christian countries, individualism has emerged. So that also means stepping away from the group, being an individual. And being an individual means adopting another kind of behavior. A behavior that fits with you as an individual and that doesn't feel forced to conform and to adhere to the rules of the group. So freedom, life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness, which is the cornerstone of American society, it requires, in my opinion, that we have or that we discover the difference between disembodied language and embodied language, because embodied language is the language of individual freedom. And individual freedom doesn't exist as long as we don't have embodied language. We may talk about it, but we don't achieve it with our disembodied language. We can't, because we're not listening to ourselves. So, here is my political view that the future of mankind is to the individual, not to the group. And therefore, the future of mankind is also about individual behavior and the departure, the abandonment of all sorts of group behavior. And we see this already happening in Western societies, and yet we don't have the language to properly address this, as long as we do not have embodied language. So, do you see how politically embodied language is needed? Currently, politics is all just disembodied language. No matter how you put it, it's always about argumentation, it's always about fighting about who's right and who can be in power. And it's a power struggle. And of course we can say, it is about voting and it's about, and I agree that is also part of it. However, when we are talking about the difference between disembodied language and embodied language, we're not talking about voting. It's not about consensus, about whether we agree that somebody is having embodied language or not. No, once we have embodied language, there will be, yeah, if you listen to yourself while you speak, and I listen to myself while I speak, and we talk with each other in the same way we talk with each other as we talk with ourselves, that is when there is a reality that is shared. Yeah? So we will be on the same page if we have embodied language. And yeah, that doesn't mean that we agree with each other. No, it actually means that we agree with ourselves. And so we have overemphasized the need to agree with each other and underestimated the importance of agreeing with ourselves. And that is, of course, the crux of the difference between our disembodied language and our embodied language. In disembodied language, we don't agree with ourselves. We can't agree with ourselves. And why? Obviously, it is because we don't listen to ourselves. So, yes, we are having some exciting times ahead of us. And this is going to spread across the world. It is not, I would not say this is the destiny of man or something like that. I wouldn't put it that way. But I would definitely say that this has become possible. And because it is possible, yeah, just like going to the moon is possible. And then we are going to the moon. And if going to Mars is possible, then we are going to Mars. Hello. And likewise, if embodied language is possible, we're going to have embodied language. And not only possible, it is desirable. It is so incredibly enriching. It's so rewarding. It is so enlightening to have embodied language. And yes, all of this is coming about because of the overt nature of language. Yeah.